righty, is there anything from either side before we go into summation?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All righty, then we are ready for closing argument. The floor is to the people.
You may be seated.
Dylan Baldwin for the prosecution. Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. Gambling is his game. You've heard a lot today about briefcases and their connection to Avery Bancroft and Chase Covington. But let me put it all in perspective for you. Chase Covington loved to gamble, and he loved to do it at the highest stakes. And he loved to do it at Avery Bancroft's casino. So it's no wonder that he was the head of the Midlands Gambling Commission, who on October 1st proposed a new casino opening. The frontrunner? Avery Bancroft. Avery Bancroft was a man who knew how to get what he wanted, and Chase Covington was a man who loved to gamble. And an unholy alliance was formed. So a meeting took place between them on April 13th. A meeting in which Chase Covington, as you heard before, said that he needed 250,000 reasons to accept this proposal. And you also heard Corey Hyde and Devin Del Sesto say that he wanted a new briefcase to do it. And at that meeting, fast forward to April 16th. You heard Corey Hyde talk about seeing Bancroft at his desk stacking piles of money into a briefcase, only saying that it had to be $200,000. The bellhop Devin Del Sesto then confirmed that he saw the exchange of briefcases occur between Covington and Bancroft a few days later. His whole life, Covington wanted to be a high roller and wasn't afraid of cutting corners to get there. Gambling was his game, and he lost. As the prosecution in today's case, we bear the burden of proof. We have to show you our burden by reasonable doubt, beyond reasonable doubt, meaning that if you find doubt based upon reason and common sense that Chase Covington received a bribe from Avery Bancroft, you must find Mr. Covington guilty. Now, to prove this, we had 3 elements to show you today. The first was that Chase Covington was a public official, or a government official, and this is not in dispute today. Neither side is arguing the opposite. The second was that the defendant received something of value or benefit in return for being influenced in the performance of an official act. Now, we've already heard from Tracy Menados that he's accepted gifts in the past. He's accepted bribes. And you also heard about the secret meeting that took place between Covington and Bancroft, in which Covington asked for 250,000 reasons to accept that proposal. And the third element was that the defendant acted with the intent to be influenced in the performance of an official act. And this can also be seen through him accepting bribes in the past. It was clear that he knew what he wanted and how he needed to get it for the deal to occur, because he spent a large part of his life gambling, and gambling was his game, and he lost. Thank you.
Closing arguments from the defense. Julie Sahalis, may I proceed?
Ma'am.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. No connection, no crime. No corruption, no conviction. Members of the jury, today you heard about the events leading up to a vote on April 17th, 2015. That vote was Chase Covington's. So one vote, one decision, his. He voted yes. Members of the jury, today the state is trying to say that Chase Covington took a bribe to influence him to vote in favor for Avery Bancroft. But that did not happen. Members of the jury, today the state, they had a burden to prove. And they had to prove to you that Chase Covington received the bribe, and that just simply did not happen. Members of the jury, today you heard about the events leading up to the vote. You heard about the meetings. You heard that Avery Bancroft and Chase Covington often went to the casino and they played together. As they said, gambling was his game, but members of the jury, that is not a crime. There's no connection, no crime, no corruption, no conviction. Now, today the state called before you 3 different witnesses to prove their burden. And they called before you Tracy Menendez, the step-sibling of Chase Covington. And she got up here on stand and she told you that Chase Covington, he often received items from his job. But members of the jury, on cross-examination, when I asked her, did Avery Bancroft ever give Chase Covington something for his job? She said, no, I'm not aware of Avery Bancroft ever giving Chase Covington anything for his job. Devin Dale Sesto, he took the stand today, and he tried to tell you about the briefcase that he delivered to Avery Bancroft. He tried to say that on April 16th, the day before the vote, he saw Chase Covington with that briefcase. But on cross-examination, what did we hear, members of the jury? Devin Dale Sesto did not have any distinguishing marks on that briefcase. So he couldn't tell the 2 briefcases from each other, Your Honor, members of the jury. So therefore, we do not know which briefcase he really had. Then they called Corey Hyde, the executive assistant of Bancroft. And all Corey Hyde could tell you was that he saw his boss putting money into a briefcase. Members of the jury, on cross-examination, the witness could not tell us that she saw a bribe take place. No witness that has taken that stand today could actually prove that a bribe has taken place. And members of the jury, that was their burden. And they had to prove to you that 1, Chase Covington was a public official. 2, the defendant, Chase Covington, received something of value to be influenced. And 3, the defendant acted with the intent to be influenced in this performance of an official act. Members of the jury, they haven't proven any of these elements. And they had to prove to you these 3 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. That means that if you have any doubts in your mind, based upon your own common sense or reason, then you cannot find Chase Covington guilty. Members of the jury, this case is filled with doubt. Now, a lot of the testimony today, it hinged upon Chase Covington and Avery Bancroft switching these 2 briefcases. But members of the jury, what testimony have we heard of that today? Because Allie Thomas came before you, and she's told you they played blackjack at her table on April 16th, 2015. They were sitting right in front of her. They both had briefcases, yes. But she said she did not see them switch their briefcases. So members of the jury, they haven't proven that second element to you. That third element, that he was influenced by that bribe, members of the jury, we have not heard any testimonies to that today. Chase Covington took the stand today, and he told you exactly why he voted for Avery Bancroft. He told you that Avery Bancroft, he had experience. The other proposal, Shannon Stark, she had no experience. She was a professional gambler. Members of the jury, there is no proof that Chase Covington took a bribe, was influenced by a bribe. Members of the jury, there is simply no proof no proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and that he did any of these two elements. And there's no connection, there's no crime, no corruption, no conviction. That's why we ask that you find Chase Covington not guilty. Thank you.
No rebuttal, Your Honor.
All right.
Please. Oh, you guys didn't do it as you were going along?
I don't think we will.
Okay, all right. Then well, let's just go to comments. We'll go directly to comments, and then after comments, we'll go to lunch. And then we'll start the next trial. How do you want to go? Do you want to go segment by segment?
However they want to do it.
Yeah.
We'll start with pre-trial, but I will get for that.
Okay.
Item by item, we'll person and then higher points and that's it. Doesn't matter to me, I'll sit here for 3 minutes.
Lou's going back to break, so where's that's on? Seconds to that. You guys want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about pre-trial.
So we're going to start with pretrial.
I always did pre-trial when I did mock, and it makes, probably colors all of my feedback on pre-trial because I thought it was really important. And I think it started off for the prosecution a little awkwardly because if you heard what he said, please make appearances.
Oh.
And then you went into your predetermined script for pretrial, which is to say, yes, Your Honor, good morning. We have a few things we would like to do, whatever it is, it's what everybody always says.
That was my first time doing pre-trial,
Yeah,
so
and that's fine.
I went poorly as expected.
And this is kind of a theme, I would say, throughout the trial, is to listen to what he's saying. Because he's telling you, one, he's telling you a lot of what the issue is in objection arguments, so you don't have to kind of figure it out. He's kind of telling you where it is. In this case, he's literally saying, please make appearances, and then 10 seconds later, you're asking to make appearances.
Yeah.
When that's really what he wanted you to do 10 seconds ago. I mean, and generally, I mean, I know that you have a lot to do right now. Pre-trial probably doesn't seem really important, but if you bungle pre-trial, then you look like a team that can't even handle pretty simple things.
It's a bad first impression.
It's a very bad first impression, and it's understandable at this. It's early in the year, and you have a cross and a direct and a few closings and openings to do. But as you get closer to the tournament, I would make sure that you spend time on it because if you look like I mean, you're coloring the judge's impression right up front. Either you're going to look polished and you're going to look like a good team, or you're not, and it's going to affect everything else in the entire trial. That's all I have for pre-trial.
Even though I wasn't here for pre-trial, I do want to mirror what a few things he just said. In multiple points in the trial, especially in objections, Lou would say something and no attorney would directly address it. Where's like it was, let's see, first cross on the defense. It was a hearsay objection, and he asked who made the statement, but instead of answering who made the statement, whoever the person responding just started reading off the rule. So that was just a classic example, like, just listen to the judge because it can make your responses just easier because you already know what he wants to hear because he's asking. But yeah, that's all I gotta add. That's like, wasn't here for pre-trial.
During pretrial, I would say give serious consideration to your demeanor because there are 2 parts of pretrial, none of which are scored directly, but all of which, as both speakers alleged or alluded to, impact the scoring going forward. So before you ever stand up for pretrial, you've got to already take a deep breath, and you know that by the time you get to your feet, you've got that deep breath, your diaphragm sucked all the way in, and you're getting ready to come out with a, I'm in control of this courtroom. What you say is nowhere near as convincing as how you say it. And so the listening point is crucial. I couldn't agree more. It will determine 10s from the 7s. And then the delivery, showing that I'm prepared, I'm confident, I've got the volume, I've got the clarity, I've got the diction. And so how you say pretrial is really, really crucial. I'm gonna make sure that we have halls in both boxes, so somebody help me make sure we purchase halls in both boxes so that nobody's choking and coughing during the round. You just want to be prepared for that. Some places you can have water. We're going to MSU. You can bring all the water bottles you want right in the classroom. We're not going to be with judges, so that won't be a problem. But some courts we will be in, you can't use water, so the halls you can always use. The other thing is be really careful about when he says you want to approach. Somebody should be in charge of making a post-it, and it probably isn't the pretrial person. Somebody at your table should be in charge of, okay, we asked this guy or gal, whoever happens to be there, what are your preferences about when you approach? And so you want to write that on a big, giant, purple, pink, orange, blue, something post-it that everybody sees. So we only ask when we go to the witness, and that way you follow the judge's preference. Because from round to round, it's always going to change.
We used to stick the sticky note right on the back of our block and just look at it before you get up. If you know you need to use it,
That's good.
because there's a million things on your mind, you're probably not going to remember, especially if it's weird,
And,
a weird set of permissions.
and I just wanted to ask the attorneys, what was the permissions that Luke gave you guys for moving about the well?
You
Ask
have
permission.
to ask permissions.
For everything?
Once for the witness, and then after that you're good.
Okay, because at times when I watched his demeanor when you guys asked, I felt like sometimes you guys have more, like you kept asking as a way of formality every time you wanted to do something. So I just wanted to ask.
All right, we're on to openings.
All right, so I'll start with this. Okay, so looking at the opening for the people, Jonathan. All right, so I like the eye contact. You know, you had good pace about you. Make sure you don't argue in your opening, because if you have somebody who's judging you who's a prosecutor, mainly, if you have somebody judging you who's a defense attorney, they will not like it in any kind of way, shape, or form. Because you're a prosecutor, you don't argue, you just tell somebody how it is for your initial starting. Now, you know, what do you consider argument is relative to who's ever listening to you. But a safe bet is the evidence will show, you will hear, this witness will say. Like, you never told me that the evidence is going to show anything. You just said, this is what happened, this happened, that happened, he did this, he did that, and then so you're making these assertions that things are going to happen that may not happen, and also just make sure you don't give me a promise you can't keep, because I'm pretty sure you guys thought certain things were going to come into evidence that
Yeah, we did.
wound up not coming into evidence.
Say that.
So in your opening statement, I always say this. For an opening statement, you don't need to tell me all the evidence that you're gonna get at. Usually you tell me the whole kind of surrounding circumstances that I'm going to listen to, because you really never know what is and is not gonna come in. And if you make me a promise that you can't keep, then you look bad. So my rule of thumb is I don't make any promises. Only thing about tell you are gonna come in are things that both sides have already agreed on. Because that's what you want to kind of do there. But I like the timing of it. I like the way you kind of came into everything. So that was definitely something that I would like. For defense opening, Cam, I like the theme, but limited to 3 instead of 4. So you guys have 4, and I like the way you put that kind of semicolon in there, because you got like phrase, comma, phrase, semicolon, and then you go into the rest of it. But if you're looking at it as, if there's no connection, I get you, there's no connection, that means that there is no type of corruption. There is no crime, there's no conviction, but here's the deal. One of those you don't really need when you think about it. There's no connection, there's no corruption, there's no conviction. Do I really need, if I can't, is there really a crime then? I mean, that's self-explanatory that it's not a crime. I like the thing, but I just like 3 because that way you can keep hammering in on the fact that you can't connect these two people together in any kind of criminal nature, in that he's not a corrupt person. He just likes to gamble. That's just who he is. Give me more information about your client. and focus on what the evidence will not show, because don't take on stuff that you don't have to. I mean, you don't have to do anything. You can sit here and, you know, with just hang out and not even have to say a single word because everything's on them. So just make sure you really push it on them, like, hey, it ain't gonna show this, it ain't gonna show that, they're gonna have to prove you this, and it's not gonna. That's what really good defense attorneys do. They never take any responsibility of anything because you don't want to be responsible for nothing. Make it seem like that person. Yeah, it's all them. They have to do everything. Don't even look at us. Look at them, harp on them, criticize them. And so you just want to get it there, but I like that. And then try to, if you can add about 20 seconds or so, that'd be perfect. Get you around now like that 4:34, I think you're at 4:04. So try to get around now like that 4:30-ish kind of thing, and that'd be perfect.
Mr. Whitson?
Yeah, you know, my first thing on the plaintiff or prosecution opening statement would be your theme, that gambling is his game. And I thought that was kind of an interesting theme for a lot of reasons, because one, I don't really see bribing as a form of gambling. Bribing is basically assuring an outcome, which is kind of the opposite of gambling. The second is that you're saying gambling is his game, but he's not on trial for gambling, and no one ever is, because gambling isn't a crime. So I understand what you're saying, like by bribing him, he was kind of gambling with the law, or I guess, but I think there's a lot better ideas for themes than that. And one of them that kind of occurred to me during your closing, have you guys ever seen the movie Jerry Maguire?
Yes.
Do you remember Cuba Gooding Jr.'s famous line from that movie?
Show me the money.
Show me, like when you're talking about him saying, I need 250 million reasons, you should characterize it in a way that makes me think of Cuba Gooding Jr. screaming, show me the money into a phone.
Okay.
I mean, to the extent that you can give testimony that presents it that way, but something about, you know, look, he asked for money, he got money, and then he did what they wanted to.
It's
So
pretty simple when you put it like that.
So, and that's really, I mean, really, that's what your case is. Like, there's not a lot there. Like, he asked for a $250,000, he got around $250,000, and then he voted in favor of the casino, right? Like, it has to be that simple up front, because you don't really have a whole lot of really, at least from what I've seen, you don't have a whole lot of detailed evidence. So your case has to be, he asked for money, he got money, he did what they want.
Okay.
And not that you necessarily should use those words, but that should be the basis of your theme, because that's the essence of your case. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'll get to that more in the rest of the case about characterizing things and developing things more. Oh, the other thing, you opened, sorry, Jonathan.
Yes.
Early in your opening, you were doing a lot of witness attribution. You were saying, you're going to hear from this person that's going to say this, you're going to hear from... Early in the opening, don't worry about that so much. Just tell a story. And when you're constantly attributing who said this or who is going to tell you about this event, you're kind of losing the storytelling nature of it. And it doesn't sound like a story anymore. And it's kind of hard to follow. So early in your opening, kind of like what Lou was saying, when you're just laying it out kind of generally, you're just telling a story the way you would describe what happened to somebody. What happened? Well, there was a new casino that was being voted on, and it was either going to go to person A or person B. And, you know, we found out that the person that was going to make that decision met with person B. Then the next day, he deposited a lot of money in his bank account, and then the day after that, he voted in favor of person B getting the casino. I mean, it's a pretty simple narrative. I think you just have to kind of lay it out a little bit more clearly, because I didn't really find out what was going on until a little bit later in the trial, and it should be you that's telling me what's going on, and they can't be telling me what's going on from your perspective. So don't worry so much about attribution. Later in your opening, you're going to get to this person's going to tell you about this, but early on, just tell me what happened. That's got to be the first thing that you, at the top of your opening.
Okay, thank you.
I think yeah, this was you. At one point, you said we will have proven all of our elements wholly.
I wasn't supposed to say that?
I had guessed that. I mean, just be careful about saying things that aren't I don't know.
It might say completely. And
I mean, don't even say that, because that's not what your burden is legally. Your burden is something very specific, and you should not get in the habit of describing it any other way than the way the law prescribes, because that's not for you to decide.
Okay.
The judge gets to tell them what the burden is, or the law tells them what the burden is. The judge explains it to them. So just don't even try to explain it any other way. Use the specific legal terminology in the penal code or the case law or whatever, and just don't ever describe it any other way, unless, yeah, just,
the jury instructions.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. TC, anything to add before I?
Yeah, my comments are more so towards the presentation aspect of the trial. John, you were walking around a lot. You need to move with purpose. Even though I was standing over in the back, so I mean, I just saw you move from one side of the room to the other side. When you're doing your opening, you do sound firm, but you sound just a little harsh, and I'm guessing that has to do with the fact that a lot of the things you were saying were kind of argumentative in nature. We're doing your opening, you sounded a little robotic also, and that may just be because you know you gotta say this, then you gotta say this, and just move from step by step. Try to learn how to say it all, try to say it as a whole speech with pauses in the right places. I noticed how you did incorporate some things into your witnesses, like we discussed a couple days ago, but you didn't tie any of that into your story. So when you were telling the story aspect of your opening, you should use what you know your witnesses are going to say and build the story that way. That way, when you go to talk about your witnesses, all you got to do is drop the one thing that's the thing that I need to pay attention to. So Hyde, just drop the one thing that one or two things max, but preferably just one thing that I, as a jury member, when they go to testify, that's what I'm looking for. Cam, like I told you a little bit ago, you did sign very confident. Just tone it down a little bit so you have room to inflect and go down. I did have some issue on the theme. As the theme stands now, you need to work on your delivery. Because it just sounded like one long thing, when in my mind, it sounded like you say the first part, slight pause, then you say the second part. And I didn't hear any slight pause, at least that's what I was expecting to hear. When you first introduced Bancroft, I was looking for a label, something for me to easily identify with. You used it later, but I just felt like as soon as you said the name Bancroft, you should put a label to it. So that way, because the whole trial really isn't about Bancroft, it's about Cummington. So Cummington should really be the name I should be hearing the whole trial. I should be hearing Bancroft labeled as local casino owner as many times as possible, at least in your opening. Beyond a reasonable doubt was very well delivered. You walked around a lot too. Good use of hands, but watch them being used too much. Again, like John, you do what you're going to do physically with purpose. Don't use the word speculation in your opening. Use something different. When you said it, I didn't like it. The last thing I have for you is your opening sounded like it had no pauses. It was just one long statement. And you want to put some pauses so I can get just a second or two to really process the points you're making. And because of that, because you're just going pounding, it's like, I can't take any time of oh, okay, this is what I should be expecting. So if you use pauses strategically, it'll help you make a full 5-minute opening that you want to have. Those are my comments.
I do agree on the pausing that that is gonna, I'm not asking you to add content to your opening, I'm asking you to deliver it so that it's more effective on the listener, and the pauses will do that. I think we've talked, Jonathan, about the story is still in need of being fluid, and part of that will come from slowing down. So you finished at 4:30, and you got 30 seconds of slowing down to do.
Last night I timed myself at 6 minutes.
6 minutes, yeah. It's different when you're in trial. And then, Cam, what the prosecution will tell you is not the truth, is not an argument I would ever make, because sitting on your panel is a Washtenaw County prosecutor. That's what Lou does. and you just said to him, I will do what the prosecution doesn't do, which is tell you the truth. So you don't want to impugn the integrity of the prosecution. Let me tell you that trial is an adversarial system where the prosecution identifies and highlights a certain group of facts that lead the fact finder to one conclusion. The defense highlights a separate set of facts that leads the fact finder to a different conclusion. But in their mind, no advocate comes into the court to lie. They come in saying, these are the important facts, and if you apply the law to them, this is how it works. And these are the important facts the other side says, and if you apply to the law to them, you come to an opposite conclusion. So it's zealous advocates highlighting different facts and applying them to the same law, which is captured in the jury instructions. And so that's really crucial. And I just have to say, on a personal note, this trial gives me so much joy because I've got an All-American that was in the program 4 years. I've got another attorney that won awards, TC, that was in the program 4 years. And then I've got Lou Danner, who I remember I asked him, would you get on a bus and go videotape a trial? And now he's a Washington County prosecutor. So at moments in the trial, I just couldn't help but experience a lot of joy at watching what we call climbing class, where it's not where you start. And I say that over and over and over again. It's not where you start. Where you start is a baseline. It's a precipice. It's a foundation, but it's not where you start. It's where you finish at Veterans. It's where you what?
Finish.
It's where you finish. And the end of the season is where you are able to look back and you see some skills that you didn't have before that benefits you not only in mock trial but in other areas of your practice. Whether you're running a business as Pat is and in project management, or whether you're a prosecutor as Lou is in his role in Washington County, or whether you're TC in graduate school processing cases. The skills you learn as you grow in this arena put you ahead of your peers who don't have this experience. So I'm on to the first witness.
All right. So we got, I'm going to go with attorney first. Dylan?
Yep.
All right, Dylan. I want you to be more conversational.
All right.
And that comes with time. It's not something you just inherently pick up as that this question and answer format is supposed to actually seem like it's not a question and answer format. So just when you what I always say is that in a conversation, the last thing that someone says is a lot of times the first thing that you're gonna say. So instead of saying, okay, I know what my next question is, right? You have them on a list, you have them written out, you know what you're gonna ask next. Even if the last answer you were given, if it doesn't fully lead you into your next question, right? And so it's like she didn't give you or he didn't give you everything you needed for the next question. Piggyback on that and go somewhere else. Like,
Make it fluid.
Yeah, just make it fluid instead of like, oh, well, you were just saying that, let's see, for instance, what would be a good example? Okay, because we're making distinguishing between April 13th and April 16th, like that. So you're just talking about what would happen on April 13th. Could you explain a little further about this? Because just in case the person didn't give you everything you needed for the next question. You know, because you got to worry about those foundational things.
Yeah.
So you always want to piggyback on that as a way of either A, tipping this person off that we're not done yet, and you haven't come in competition, you will get left hanging. And if you don't know how to act when you get left hanging, you're going to be in an awkward position, and then you two are going to be mad at each other because she didn't help you or he didn't help you and you didn't help her. And this happens all the time. You get into these kind of disputes about who's supposed to help who with the questions. So you just kind of, to give them a little hint that this is where we need to go. Or you make a sign, give a signpost to where I'm about to lead you, so I need you to be on the same page with me, hopefully, at that point. So that way you guys seem on the same page. And I was saying you need to give more foundation, like, okay, like I wrote down, did she work that day? What was she doing? Like, okay, well, what were your duties that day? Okay, did you see this person? And this is something that's a stickler because I'm a prosecutor, and I don't know if it really matters that much in mock trial, but identification. Like, to be all honest, you wouldn't have made it past directed verdict at all because you never actually identified who the defendant was. Like, even though he says who he is, and even though they go ahead and say this is that person, if you don't get your witnesses on the stand to say, yes, this is the individual I saw at the gambling table on this day, and yes, I recognize him sitting in the courtroom today and he's wearing this, then at that point, I don't have the element of the crime, because you got to prove that this person did it. So if you don't get identification from somebody, you're never going to be able to actually move forward in the case. Make sure your person doesn't give narrow testimony, because, I mean, at this, you're just asking a blanket question. It's you just...
We need to clean up, like, the conversational aspect of it and not just have it be, like, ask a question and have the witness speak for, like, 5 minutes.
Yeah, just cut her off. If you have to. Even if you got to cut them off, do it all the time. Put a hand up. Okay, I want to... Then you do that, just so it doesn't seem, because people will get tired if it doesn't seem like you were involved. I don't want to know you're there, but I want to hear you enough to know that, you know, there's...
Just someone asking questions.
Yeah, you're not some dead body up there just kind of standing there for no reason. So just do that. Lauren, good way to make it conversational with the attorney. But make the attorney have a conversation with you. Stop, literally. I would do it all, just stop. Just if you feel like you're talking too much, stop talking and look at him. And then he'll figure it out. One way or another, he will figure it out that you need more. You know, because you don't want to be up there and then have someone attacking you because you're saying too much. And I guess I just go with Chris on the cross. Good start to get to the heart of the issue. You went right up, got right to the heart of the issue, and sat down. That's how you do it. There's no reason to sit up there and try to, you know, grandstand or nothing like that. If you knew that through direct they didn't get anything, don't ask more questions to give them more reason to get up and try to fix it. If they left it broke, you leave it broke too. You didn't see this, did you? Nope, okay, we're good. And that's perfect. No one's gonna score you down because you don't ask enough questions. Literally, you only got one question, 2 questions, that's fine. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have to give you a higher score because those are 2 good questions.
I'll start off by echoing exactly what he said, which a lot of people have some kind of grand notion that cross-examination has to be really long. And the longer it is, I mean, generally, the lower the quality of it is. Like, you should just be hitting on your biggest points, and if your biggest point is that she didn't really actually see anything take place, then okay, that's fine. The only thing I would add was your question of, did you see him bribe the person? I would change that to maybe something a little bit more specific and really hit more at the issue being decided in the trial, which is, did you see Bancroft give Covington money? Did you see them exchange money? Did you see something a little bit more specific than did you see him bribe him? Because I don't know exactly what it's supposed to look like for me to know it's a bribe. I see people give people money all the time. I don't just assume that it's a bribe, and I have no idea what the circumstances around them, the transaction is. So can you really see someone give someone a bribe? I don't really know if you can see all that. So just try to make your question a little bit more specific and hit more at the central issue. I don't know how I want to do this because I think the comments that I have are pretty much the same for everybody. So I'll just try and hit them briefly here and then maybe just add on as we go through every witness. The first thing I would say was that everybody needs a little bit of, in some cases a little bit, and in other cases a lot of bit of practice to kind of get more comfortable with what they're doing and kind of move to the next step of having a direct, which is, now we're getting the information out. Now we have to focus on dressing this character up, not literally, but dressing this character up as something that is interesting and something that is going to score 10s. Because a witness that has like no character, no kind of angle on it, but gets out all great information and everything, only has so high of a ceiling that they can score. If your witness is just not really any character and is just answering questions, you're probably not going to get higher than a 7 or an 8. So you kind of got like, once you get to that point, and you have to get to that point where your witness is comfortable answering questions, the next thing is you got to take that step and give them a little bit of a unique personality to him. For all attorneys, I don't think there was anybody that I thought was really where they should be with this. Is like just general courtroom procedure, so that you know how to impeach somebody. And I know you knew a lot of it, but just the thing of not showing the other attorney at first was something that you have to do. And these are all things that you guys should practice together, and that everybody on your team should do it the exact same way. If I see 3 impeachments by 3 crosses on the defense, they should all look basically the same, because they should be practiced together. And just other stuff like, I don't know, how you're responding to objections and what you're saying, and not cutting off the judge when he's talking is one thing. Just general way you're carrying yourself in the courtroom. For directs, and I'll probably stop and then pick up on the rest of this at another time, so you don't have to listen to me talk for 20 minutes. Developing points on direct. So you don't really just want to ask a question and have them give an answer that's a line out of the direct. If there's a really important point in that affidavit, you don't ask one question about it. You find 5 ways to ask that same question, so that when it gets down to the end of the trial, we're not trying to debate whether or not this important point actually made it out. We should know, because we should remember it. And this is kind of what I was saying with the, show me the money part, is that line, like, I need 250 million reasons to vote for your casino, or whatever exactly he said. You gotta find ways to develop that point more and make it more memorable, and just hammer it in as much as you can, because that's a big part of your case. Especially if you're going to, he asked for money, he got money, he voted the way they wanted. That's one part of your 3-part, general theme or theory that you're doing there. So, it's not just about asking a question and having them give an answer. It's about getting out fact by fact by fact. And that's kind of like what Lou was saying with your narrative answer, or narrative style of questioning, is asking a specific question and getting a specific response. And it shouldn't deal with more than one fact. It really should, in a lot of cases, deal with setting up other facts sometimes. So it's not asking a question and having them say, yeah, I saw this, then I saw this, then I saw this. Those are each one question. And then you got to focus on making it in a way that it doesn't sound, it sounds conversational. But you have to develop points more. It's not just about asking, so what did you hear? Oh, I heard him say this. And then you move on. No. There's a few questions there you can ask.
Thank you. TC, did you have something to add?
Yeah. For the first direct, the attorney, know the name of your own witness.
I know.
And then when you're directing the witness, stand where Jay was, towards around the part where you're, where the witness will look towards you and the jury, instead of just being right in the middle of the courtroom. Middle courtroom is really where you want to be for cross. Lauren, you didn't have a lot of life with your character. Like, I understand you're reading the direct, but other witnesses, they were able to not only read the direct that they had in front of them, but add a little flavor to it. Put a little of yourself in it, or if you want to work with your team on how you guys want to see this specific witness behave in trial, and kind of, add some life to it. Dylan, I know this is it's a scripted direct, but if she's not, but you have to read your witness in terms of, if she's not done with her answer, don't talk over her. Like, at least until she can get her, the witness rolled down right, and then you guys work with the chemistry that way. When you guys talked about the meeting on April, I didn't write down the date. The question I asked myself was, what was this meeting about? I just heard this meeting come out of nowhere. Okay. I had nothing that led up to it, so I couldn't see the importance of why this first witness is talking about a meeting. Okay. Was this the actual bride meeting? Was this the meeting where they were going to ask, hey, I want money? Build something up to it. For cross, you asked, did you see the bride? One way I reworded it on here was, you could reword it and say, you did not see the bribe occur. I thought the impeachment was very ambitious. You'll want to watch the video with your team to evaluate the proper impeachment procedure, as they've already reiterated.
Dylan, you want to ask to see the affidavit before the witness already has it in his hand, her hand. And sometimes, Chris, and if you reword the question to something like I suggested, or whatever you and your team decide, you can avoid that awkward silence where everyone's waiting to see if this witness did in fact write in her affidavit. As a crossing attorney, and this goes for all attorneys, when it's cross time, it's all about you, whereas direct examination is all about the witness. So as a crossing attorney, if you want to get a fact out, ask it very pointed and get that answer out, because it loses that shining effect that you're supposed to have during cross, because we're all waiting on her and her answer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty
Thank
much
you. I think to speed up the flow, this will be my last comments, and then I will just let TC and I share with you our comments after our judges who have driven for 2 hours have gone home. And then we'll just limit our comments to them to separate us between lunch. So the only thing I want to say is I concur with everything said about the directs and said about the witness. I just wanted to give you what they're talking about, Chris. One of the things that you referred to as the written statement, call it an affidavit. It's testimony given under oath, which is an affidavit, which is really different than just a written statement. The other thing they're talking to you about is the elements. He's telling you to watch the video. The element that you were missing was true and accurate copy. So you said, is this your statement? Did you sign it? And what you were missing, is that a true and accurate copy? You want her to say, yeah, this is a true and accurate copy. So you want to ask that question. So that's what they're trying to teach you. And so what I'll do is I'll fill in after our judges are gone additional details about what they were referring to, but since TC and I are local and everybody's hungry, I'm just going to let the 2 judges from out of town give their comments. Go ahead, Lou. Take it away with the second witness, please.
All right, Plaintiff 2, accused witness 2. All right, start with Jonathan. All right, so it's a good intro to building the foundation. That's a big thing about the people's case, the people's burden, is that there's a nice chunk of what you do on the record is just foundational. It doesn't serve too much of a purpose, but what it does is that when an objection comes, you've already laid all the proper foundation for that objection so you can combat it. Because when you cannot combat the objection predicated on the fact that you're not laying a proper foundation, then that makes you have to go back, lay the groundwork for that, and then get into where you're going to be asking the heart of the issue. And if you take too long to get to the heart of the issue, then these will be looking at you mad, because they're like, well, you're eating into now my witness's time. Because you're all going to have a certain amount of time for per witness. And it's going to start to get real edgy between y'all to determine who gets the bulk of that, 25 minutes? Yeah, who gets more? Who gets more of this? No, I need that, I need that. And if you have to do stuff like that, you're going to get 2 frowny faces and a note that's saying, what the hell are you doing? And then from now on, you guys are all going to be rushing somebody, which means that everybody's going to suffer. So you got to really have that down pat as far as foundation is concerned. And if you do not have a response for an objection, here's the deal. You know when you're asking a question that's objectionable. We all do. You know when you wrote it down to ask it, it was probably going to get an objection. You probably hope that it may not. You may be able to sneak it under the carpet. If you get called out on something, you know you don't have a response, just say, I'll move on, Your Honor. Act as if it doesn't matter. Act as if I didn't really care at all that you objected. I don't even let them finish the objection sometimes in court. They want to object and then try to grant. I'll move on, Your Honor. And I just keep acting as if they're not even there. Because I know I shouldn't have asked the question up front, but I just want to see if they're on their toes. And if they're not, you keep going in. But if you don't have a response, like you don't want to just sit there and kind of look at me and I'm like, you have a response. Like, well, yeah. No, have all your responses already ready if you're going to be going into something like that. As far as the witness goes, I like the tone and I like the explanation of the job title. Like, giving an explanation of what you do gives life to the person that you're being. It makes me seem like you're more of that individual. You seem a little more professional in the way you're going about things. And that makes me believe everything you have to say a little more when it comes to those witnesses. Don't stand so close to each other. And then if you are the witness, here's a sign, lean back in your chair. If the person's getting to you, if you're a witness and you feel that he turns to get a little closer to you, just back off a little bit, then they should be able to read that body language of, where we're going, and you two need to collab together so I can get a clear direction as to why this witness is here. I'm honest, to be goodness, like I had no clue what you called almost any of these witnesses for. I just really didn't know what was going on. Cross, good tone, good placement, and what I mean by good tone is the tone that you use with the witness is that it wasn't adversarial, because as a defense attorney, you don't want to seem too adversarial. You want to seem like a nice guy. Everybody likes us. It's all light here. I'm just trying to do my job. It's not a big deal. Hope everything's going well with you, even though I'm about to crush you. But hey, I'm gonna do it really nicely, because that's the whole point of. And people have to like you, because people think you're just here for the money. No, I'm here because I believe in this cause. I'm there, you know. And your placement is where you stand at. It's a good way to stand there and make sure that person looks at you. And always put, don't be combative unless you have to. So, like, unless you really have to, don't ever raise your voice. I never raise my voice at all, because it makes me look bad. It makes me look like I'm beating up on somebody who doesn't need it. You know, the person's not being a real evasive person. Just that you just go right along with them. And so whatever tone that they're using, you adopt that type of personality. So it's going to change based on whoever you're questioning. But good way to, you know, stay short on that too, as far as that you didn't need too much stuff, so you did fine. And for the witness on cross, don't ever agree with the defense attorney unless you have to. You don't have to agree with the assertion that the person is making. Don't. And even if you know what they're trying to get at and they didn't fully get there, then you just leave them with the pin drop no. That's why, no, and you just kind of sit there and look at them, and then they're going to look back and look at you, and then you're going to look again, look at the judge. Just leave it there. Don't ever give up anything unless you have to, and just keep it real simple.
Pat? So, a couple things. One, this direct was a good example of what I was talking about before about developing a point that I'd like to highlight. So, one of the points seemed like to me, from my memory, the major point of calling this witness was the issue of the briefcases. And he testified that one was old and one was new. Right? Is that about right?
Yes.
There's more that he can get into on that can kind of add some credibility to what he's up there testifying to, and kind of hammer the point home that there was these differences between these briefcases, if that's what you want to do. He's up there to say one was old and one was new. Asking one question, having him say one was old, one was new, is incredibly forgettable. But if he goes into detail, well, describe the older one. What about it made it appear old? Well, the leather was worn. There was some small tears. It was a little grimy. I mean, whatever it is, to kind of hammer the point home. This one looked different than this one. And then what did the new one look like? Well, it was in great condition. There wasn't any soiling on it. All the leather around it was intact. It looked, everything looked fresh on it. Whatever it is. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about developing points more. If that's a big point of his direct, asking one question, having him say one looked old, one looked new, is not enough. The other thing I'll talk about generally with this, and again, I think it was almost all of the attorneys, was making sure that your questions on cross are leading questions and only leading questions. Because for the first two crosses from the defense, the first question was a did you see, or it was a did you see, and those aren't leading questions. So I guess in the case of Cam, the second one, you kind of only asked one question, and your kind of question was, that's maybe one example where not having a leading question where their answer is no is more okay, but in general, like, did you see this? Did you do this? Not really questions suitable for a cross. It's, you didn't see this, or you didn't do this. And there's a lot of crosses that'll just be endless questions like that, and you're basically just making a statement. It shouldn't even sound like a question. When you write it down, and you write down your cross point, they always have a period at the end because it's a statement. That's how you cross, is you just say things, and then they say yes or no.
Mr. Danner?
And just move on to the third witness, but just for cross purposes, when when you're asking those questions, like you don't have to put correct at the end of it. You don't have to. Like, you can see, like, leading questions should be shaped in a way that I asked you questions when I was asking about your objections. You would agree with me that? It would be fair to say that you heard this. It would be fair to say that this was that. Then like, I want to lead you to a conclusion without having to really ask you a question. That's kind of what you want it to be. And in that way, you give them a little room to hang themselves in case, you know, you need to adjust to make them answer the questions. People's Witness 3. Tracy Montos. Started with Mia here. Good personality on that. That was probably some of the best personality I saw beyond, you know, it was a good job by the defendant himself. But good personality, good way to give more than what you're asked. It's always a weird kind of scenario of like, I don't want you to say too much and give too much more than what you're asked, but I kind of do want you to give a little more than what you're actually being asked, because I want you to throw a little more in there, a little more point catching type of things. So you did a really good job as far as giving me more than what, you were answering way more than what the question was, but it didn't become so blatant to where it would be annoying to anyone else. It became where it was like, all right, yeah, I can see you giving me a little more than that. That's fine. You know, so if you guys can stay in that zone where I'm giving you more, not giving you too much, which is a weird zone to be in, it's almost like the perfect where you can be. It's like the porridge is too hot, porridge is too cold, porridge is right, like that kind of thing. But as far as the direct exam, you need to control the conversation. It kind of seems like you're just following the conversation, and if you don't seem like you're in control of your witness, or your witness is controlling you, you know, it's kind of like, why are you up here then? It's like you're the stiff in the suit who's doesn't have any control of what's going on here. Your witness is, you know, stealing the show from you, which you want that person to be highlighted, but you don't want to seem like you're catching up to a witness adverse to you guys are on the same page. And you guys need to be more concerned about foundation. It's the most annoying part of question asking, but it's the most important part of question asking, that if a lot of objections wouldn't occur if you would give foundation. Your stories would have more life to them if you would give more foundation. Like, why does this person know what they know? How did they see what they saw? What made that person think that? Because if a person says, I thought this, well, why? What was ever going on in these circumstances to make you see this, to make you feel that? Like, so you really want to be nitpicky when it comes to what building block did I lay for this answer? What building block did I lay for this response? For this person to give that opinion about their rationally based opinion, what did I do to set that up? You know, so those are the things you really want to make sure that everything that you do is set up in such a way that you can point back to me when I ask you a question on which somebody objects. Well, was this stated, was that stated? You can clearly go back and say, Your Honor, we went over this, this, and this, and we already laid the proper foundation, adverse to saying, Your Honor, I can lay that foundation, or if you allow this evidence to be admitted, I will go do that. You've already done it, so now I can look at them and say, well, weren't you listening? And then that way, you know, you're always on the better end. And I think it was with this, I made a note said, make the record reflect. I think it was when you were going over this, and there was just pointing to the document itself and pointing to the exhibit. Here's the deal.
I don't think that was it.
In real life, who was pointing to this? I believe it was somebody going over, you guys were pointing to this, right? You're pointing to this, and you guys admitted it. It was your exhibit, it was defense exhibit, and that defense gave this here. And I need, just for any reference, when you point to something here, you gotta say it out loud. I'm directing your attention to exhibit A, the third chair, or the table 3, the chair next to table 3, the witness pointed at that or whatever. Like when you was like, can I get up and go look at it? That's perfect. Like you don't know what they're pointing to, so you don't want to, you know, do anything like that. And I put for the cross of this witness, great way not to stay up there for no reason, and that's an important thing of like,